Claire saying struggle with various projects. Okay, amazing stuff. And yeah, hello to the recording. Welcome. We're just going to get stuck in now. If you're logging in from the future, welcome to your deep dive on the focus formula for productivity. We're looking at inbox and task list today. Wayne saying, I keep signing up for online workshops instead of doing my work. Wayne, it's good to see you have a sense of humor. That is entertaining. Now, talking about that, it's my job to make sure you get this time back. So Wayne, I'm going to propose that as a good thing. And I'm going to say, yes, you've committed, and future Wayne is going to look back and thank you for this. So maybe we'll set that as a mini goal for this session, that you win time based on efficiencies that you can introduce off the back of today. So key takeaways: why we're going to archive emails. Maybe some of you are already doing this. Why we're going to archive emails, how we make the right to-do lists, focusing on what is important. Why to archive emails? Why do we do that? Nice. Okay. So push the red button. What's the red button, guys? Think about your inbox. What might the red button be? I've given you a tip there, really. Oh, delete. It's not delete. It's not junk. I've given you a massive tip. Think of the last slide. Yeah, archive. Exactly. The archive word, the archive button. I like flagging, Alexa, but it's the archive. So if I ask you all, what's the biggest inbox communication challenge you face? Maybe someone will tell me, I receive a lot of emails. Or maybe you're going to tell me, I have multiple inboxes. What's the challenge when it comes to inbox management, guys? I'm just going to keep a real vicious eye on the time as well. Sifting importance, yeah. Being pointlessly CC'd, Jay, I love that one. We can definitely deal with CC'd emails. Prioritizing, you sweep yours, Clara. I might be a fan of the scan. We might not get into it. I might be a fan of the scan. CC'd and reply all. Yeah, okay. We'll come back to the CC one. I don't have the slides to talk about it, but it is an interesting point. I have a CEO that I worked with that filters every single email they've been CC'd on into a different folder, and they check it less regularly than they check their normal inbox. And that's exactly what Wendy's saying in the chat, using rules. They use a rule that if they're on the CC line of an email, it moves it to a folder called CC. I think they actually called the folder Def by CC, which was a little funny, but you can just call it CC'd emails. And they would check that maybe once or twice a week, as opposed to every time they check their inbox. So yeah, the CC one, that's a really good point. Difficult to catch up and then miss something. All right. So interesting. Only a few of you said a lot of emails. I mean, the reality is people out there are getting 100 plus emails per day. How do we tackle this? How do we deal with this? And I think this was also addressed in the chat. How do we prioritize what's really important? Because emails can feel urgent, but maybe they are not necessarily what changes the lives of our beneficiaries. Now I might be wrong. I used to be the head of customer services. The emails were incredibly important in a customer service department. That is the most important thing. But in my current job as a trainer, emails are a tool that help me communicate with people to do my job. They aren't the way to do my job. Of course, training, writing courses, selling courses, that's how I do my job. And so for most of us, I just want to ask you now, are your emails a tool that help you do the job, or are they the job? So if you're in customer service, they're going to be the job, aren't they? Maybe you're an EA to an executive team, then emails are going to be the job. Let's just have a little look in the chat. Does anybody think their job is actually the doing of the emails as opposed to it being a tool? Yeah, Jenny's saying it's a tool that helps me do the job. Help, exactly, yeah. A tool, yeah. Okay, cool. Because it is slightly different. Some of the things I'm going to introduce today are the idea of not starting our day with emails. Now, that might sound difficult, but that wouldn't work if you were a customer service team, where clearly that's the most important thing to do. But some of us, maybe you're a fundraiser, well, the most important thing you might have to do today is write an application. And maybe we could prioritize that as opposed to going straight into our inbox. Okay, let's get stuck in then. The idea here is our inboxes do not need to be a dumping ground. Now, I'm going to focus on Outlook today because most of us are probably on Outlook, but all of this stuff applies to Gmail or other email providers as well. I mean, I just want to put an image up. Has anybody seen this image before? Funnily enough, everybody that comes on this course says no. yes. And this is on the new version of Outlook. And look, the goal here isn't to have emptied your inbox. That isn't necessarily the goal, right? You can leave things in your inbox over the weekend until a meeting. Yeah, people in the chat are saying, I didn't know it was a thing. That's true. It's good, isn't it? So if we were doing this and we were digging in very deep, we'd be covering all three of these things. Folders, flagging, and rules. In my book, Managing Your Inbox, we cover all of these in detail. What we're going to do today, though, we're just going to talk about folders. The rest of this stuff we can catch up offline if you want to. Or of course, you could pick up a copy of Managing Your Inbox. It will be slightly different between the platforms, as I've spoken about already. We're going to focus on folders today for this first part. That's my folder system. That's me. That's me at DSC. There's all my folders. Now, maybe it's a little overwhelming, potentially. You can tell me if it isn't or if it is. For me, what I just want to point out is a couple of things. One of them, I use subfolders. Can you see this? 1 live, 2 contact history, 3 reference, 4 product info. Can you see these? I can minimize these. And then if I minimize them all, my folders would be very neat. It would just say live, contact history, reference, product information, and old folders. So a subfolder system is something I want to introduce today, the idea. And I think also, I don't know why, but I really love the addition of emojis to my folders. It really helps me visually. A star is something that's permanent. These are folders that are going to last forever. If I went in my useful folder, I've been putting things into there for years. My dragons, I do like dragons. My dragon emoji folders are folders that I check regularly. These are all linked to calendar events that I check regularly. For example, waiting for. If I email you and I'm expecting a reply, I'm dragging that email into my waiting for folder. Every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, between 10 and 10:30, I check which conversations are outstanding in my waiting for folder. And there's a few other systems there. I guess the extra point here, though, I want to make is old folders. Can we all see this folder down here called old folders? It doesn't take a genius to imagine what's in those folders, right? So these are actually the folders that I currently use. I use all of these. And however, I used to be the head of customer services at DSC, and I wasn't a trainer in the past. So it used to look very different to this. And when I change roles and when things change, for example, these conferences will be in the past one day, I need to move them into the past. And I need to move them somewhere so I'm not looking at them every single day. And so my tip here, and we're going to have an opportunity to have a go with some folder work now, is to introduce subfolders, maybe introduce this whole idea here around emojis and giving you a little bit more visual clarity, but to add a folder called old folders that you drag any old folders into. And so if I wanted to open up the folders I use for customer service, I could very quickly open that and see all of those folders in their detail that they were in when I joined in 2017 through to 2019 when I performed that role. So we just got to basically think of our folders as a way to have a kind of nice, tidy, current view. Now, I don't want you to think that I just do this at work. These are my folders at home. Do you know how useful it is to have a folder called receipts for your home email address, and every single time you buy something, you drag it into the folder called receipts? And believe it or not, you can then find everything you've bought over the years from different shops. I had an air mat that went down, and I thought I'd bought it from one company, and I tried to claim the warranty repair on from that company, and they didn't have the order. And so I then went into my receipts folder, and it was like, oh, I bought it from a random shop because it was a better deal all those years ago, 4 years ago or something, purely found because it was nicely organized. Now, again, I'm not trying to sell you on the idea of doing this for home. We're focusing on work today, but this stuff does work for our home lives as well. So we want to think about using subfolders and numbers to allow for this easier categorizing. Potentially, the thing you need to do first of all is add a folder called old folders and move folders you are no longer using into there. Does anybody resonate with that old folder work you've got to do? Let's have a little look what people in the chat are saying. Diane, you just delete yours. Fair play, Diane. I'm not brave enough to do that. Claire, you dragging folders to the archive. Okay, yeah. That will archive the emails and remove the folder structure, I believe, in Outlook. Hence why I don't do it that way. I use the old folder as a way to manage that slightly differently. Nice. So What we're going to do one task for the inbox. Nick's got a past courses folder. I love that. Yeah, me too. That's a good idea. So what I just want us to have a go at, and as I say, we're going to do one task for each and then one task to take away. I just want you for a couple of minutes just to have a look at your Outlook, and you don't have to necessarily make any changes, but I want you to just have a look and have a think what your folder system could look like if you were to make some changes. If you do make some changes, please feel free to share what you've done in the chat. And I'm going to be a stickler for time. It's 13:15. I'm going to say 3 minutes, 13:18. So if you're listening at home, you don't need to pause. Just crack on and do this exactly the same as the people that are listening live. It's that one training where you're actually allowed to have Outlook open, and it's a good thing. Couple more minutes. Charlene's saying, recently we've been trying to move away from storing too many items in Outlook and storing them in centralized SharePoint folders. So you're taking email information out of Outlook and storing it separately as an email file in SharePoint? Jan, I have too many subfolders and only view them in a thin strip on the left side. That sounds like you've got a good amount of subfolders. What would you change? Hi, will the recording be sent out? I'm afraid I have to leave in a minute, but I think this will be really useful. Yes, Kaylee, there'll be a recording sent out. Sorry to miss you. Jan saying it takes too long to find anything. Yes, and that could be the challenge, right? With that many subfolders. I think the idea here is that we have to be able to find an email within 1 minute. I know that's kind of a little hard and fast rule. So potentially there is a way to change that system and make that a little bit more streamlined. Maybe you need less subfolders in that way. Charlene saying, I save PDFs of relevant information so they're in one folder and trying not to have items in several inboxes so there's one place all staff can access. Makes a lot of sense, Charlene. If you're telling me other people have to be involved in that data trail, that makes so much sense. And in my kind of vision for what we're doing right now, when we store things in a folder, we call it referencing. We're storing things so we can reference them later. Saving a PDF in SharePoint is just another form of referencing, just in a different way. As opposed to storing it in a personal inbox, we're now storing it in a publicly shared accessible file. Makes a lot of sense, Charlene. Great. I love that. Very, very organized, very tidy. You get me a little bit excited when we talk about things like that. Wendy, I used to have a long list of folders, but have reduced the numbers of folders so it's easier to manage. Now you search more to find something rather than using subfolders. Well done, Wendy. Love that. Julio, I realized I'd created so many folders, then opened some and they're empty, so I can delete many folders. Nice, yeah. Jenny, I recently switched to categories as I found myself missing emails in folders, but I suppose a similar principle to keep everything organized and focused. Nice, yes, I like that, Jenny, well done. And look, we can do this in different ways. Folders for me is the most secure way I find to store that information. Maybe arguably Charlene's route of going down the PDF route for those really extreme emails that need kind of a team view on them. That's an even better way, isn't it? Where we take the email out of Outlook completely. So the idea here is we want to practice what we call inbox zero. We don't want to leave things in our inbox. Our inbox is not a dumping ground. So we want to take important emails out of there and either maybe store them in a folder or store them how Charlene did in SharePoint, or potentially we don't need them, they get archived. I'm not talking about deleting things. We still want the search function to thrive, but we're going to be able to come back and find those things using either the folder system or that search function. Claire, I use folders and subfolders, but now I've numbered them also and it looks so much better. Amazing. All right, well done, Claire. Love that. So the idea is we open our inbox and emails go through this kind of journey. We either action it, we reply to the email, we solve the problem, whatever it might be. We store it in a folder for reference, or we store it on SharePoint for reference, as Charlene said, or we archive and delete. It is simply one of these three things. We reply and action it, and then we would store it for reference if we need it, or we archive and delete it. All of my messages in the build up to running this event were all stored in my charity digital folder, funnily enough. I didn't archive or delete them. So this is the simple route our emails need to go on. So what we're not going to do today, and I'll leave this for you to do in your own time, I would argue that if you've moved every email in your inbox into the corresponding folder, if that email does no longer have an outstanding action, if the emails that are left no longer have an outstanding action, we can make the brave decision to archive them. And so the emails left in our inbox are ones that have an outstanding action or that we need to store in a folder system, and we just haven't got around to doing that yet. What we don't want is 10,000 emails in our inbox, 2,000 emails in our inbox. What we want is the idea of this system called inbox zero, where our inbox is effectively now a to-do list of outstanding actions. Does this make sense? Someone in the chat's going to give me confidence. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool. So I'll leave this exercise for you to take away. If I don't crash one of your Outlooks when you do this in the future, I'll be very sad, because there may be a lot of emails moving. I mean, maybe let me know in the chat if you're going to be moving more than 1,000 emails. Maybe give me a message and I'll give you some well wishes when I know you're doing this, because there can potentially be a lot of emails moving when we do this exercise. Okay. So not only are we tidying up right now, but actually going forward, I want you to think about how you approach your emails from a calendar perspective. So for me, this has changed slightly. I do a little bit longer now. I do an hour and a half a day rather than an hour. But I think it can be important to put in the time into your calendar. We're all doing emails every single day. And if you don't want to do emails on lunch or in between meetings or on the train journey or at some awkward moment, then we have to fight for that time in our calendar, and we have to find a way to put that in there. So I would put it in your calendar. If you have more emails, you schedule more time. I no longer can do all my emails in a day, in an hour. It takes me an hour and a half. Does anybody do this, putting their email time into their calendar? Interesting to see what people say to that. Charlene's saying no, but a good idea. Yeah, we got to protect that time, guys. You're doing emails every single day. Well done, Abby. Abby's doing it. Nice. Yes, sometimes I'm using time block planning. Exactly, Edward. That's what I do for everything. Yeah. So I put in a recurring event and I do it for an hour and a half every day. Yeah, I did, but struggled with the temptation to check. It's addictive. Whenever we do emails, it's like scrolling TikTok. Not that I scroll TikTok, but it's like that kind of fast dopamine reaction. Every email we do gives us a warm, fuzzy feeling inside that we do not get from writing fundraising applications or contracts or job descriptions or those long focused bits of deep work. And so we've got to really do well to prioritize that deep work, that it is the important things that maybe change the lives of our beneficiaries. So put it in and honor that time if you can. Easier said than done. Okay, so Wendy's saying, I don't put it in the calendar, but I'm disciplined about only doing first and last hour of the day. So yeah, that you open your day with emails. Again, that can be great for someone in a customer service role. And if you're expecting urgent emails, maybe you have to start your day with emails. If you're not expecting urgent emails, I would just question whether you want to start your day with emails, because they train the brain to expect quick, high dopamine tasks, which is not things like writing fundraising applications and all of that kind of longer things that we do in the charity sector. So Jay Ward, I worry that I'm going to miss urgent emails that need an immediate response. Yeah, and that's where if you are expecting urgent emails, then you have to have notifications on, for example, and you maybe have to have some more checks throughout the day. I would argue that maybe a system outage, the example you've given, Coming through as an email is probably not the best option. Maybe that should be a phone call to you, something to prioritize that urgency. Let's have a little look as well. Yeah, cool. I thought I just, yeah. So a little calendar tip: every day before work, I actually look through my calendar, and if I have any meetings, I set my alarms and do all of that so that I can focus on my deep work. I don't have to keep checking my calendar or my emails and seeing where I'm at. I set my phone to tell me when my meetings are going to take place. Now, some slightly obvious ones as well: make sure your calendar can be viewed by everybody. And can I prioritize my biggest objective every single day and do that before opening emails? Now, that changes from day to day. Sometimes it's updating a course. Sometimes it is my emails. If I did my emails for an hour the night before and I've still got 15 to 20 unread emails, I'm going to make my biggest objective the next day my emails. But the difference is I'm not going to it in the sense that I do it every single day. I'm choosing to do it because it's the most important thing I've recognized from the day before. Claire said, I was told if you're checking your emails first thing in the morning, you're putting others' priorities before your own work. Yeah, and I mean, that can sometimes be good, but you're on the same role as me there, Claire. I think that makes sense, and you've put that really nicely. What are those priorities of yours that maybe you need to focus on first? So on Outlook, I actually closed down the Outlook app and I use the online version of the calendar so that I can have my calendar open and not have my emails open. So again, that just minimizes that temptation a little bit. If you have urgent emails, you got to open it first thing. If your emails are important, well, you get to choose when you need to do this. And it's all about what's practical for you then. So for example, for me, I have an important email occasionally to go away and develop a course plan. But I don't need to do that first thing in the morning. I can do that at a slightly different time. I put that event into my calendar or my to-do list. It's all personal. Set time for when suits you. For me personally, I'm a morning worker. I do my best work in the morning. I am not going to write a fundraising bid at 4 p.m. when I feel like a potato after doing a day's training. And then that for me links to the idea of decision-making fatigue. We can only make a certain number of decisions every single day. And if I get to 4 o'clock and I've made lots of decisions, I maybe am not going to be in the best position to make decisions going forward. So there's this idea of how many times we should touch an email. I'm just looking at the time as well. Okay, cool. We're doing good. How many times we should touch an email? Let's say I open my Outlook, I read an email, I don't respond to it. I come back that afternoon, I read it again, I don't respond. How many times do you reckon we should touch an email? What's good practice? Once from Diane. I mean, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? Yes. As little as possible from Alexa. That's not very specific. Wendy, you said twice at most. There's a lot of twice, twice, twice. Yeah, okay. Twice is the answer. If you were to read Getting Things Done by David Allen, I've got a recommendation for it at the end. He would say twice. Wendy's nailing it. Wants to categorize and wants to handle it. Yeah, exactly. If we're doing it twice, that means we're not scanning our inbox ever. That means I come back from holiday, I don't scan my inbox. Now, I might be a fan of the scan, and sometimes you might catch me scanning, slight prioritization, and then I go into email mode. So sometimes I am touching them 3 times. I'll just caveat that. What I want you to catch yourself on, if you find yourself reading that same email over and over again because it's a 20-minute response and you need to go away and do something or speak to someone, and you then skip to the next easy one, and then you skip to the next easy one, the next day you come back. If you catch yourself reading that same email over and over again, just give yourself a little slap on the back of the hand and maybe put it in your calendar to deal with, or maybe just check how much email time you're giving yourself. Because as soon as you start working on emails within an allotted time to do emails, you've given yourself permission now to work on those quite difficult emails. We used to find this in customer service quite a lot. The low-hanging fruit was much easier to deal with than the one like doozy comment that we had to go away and find out lots of information about. So yeah, the chats are on top of this. Twice would be the magic number. Maybe we scan our inbox and then that gives us a kind of third touch point. So anything that takes under 2 minutes, just do it. Now, I don't say please on any other course, guys. It takes longer to categorize this or add it to a to-do list or whatever we need to do than it is to just do it. And this transcends work. This is our personal life as well. Tidying up after dinner, putting the shoes away and we walk in the house. All of these things that take under 2 minutes, just do it when you see them. You've spotted it, do it, move on. Then we're going to deal with the urgent, and maybe we're going to deal with the important, or we're going to come back to doing the important at another time. Okay, so getting it right then, I talk to my colleagues about this because really what we're trying to do with our inbox these days is imagine every time imagine emails are basically sending letters, right? That's the idea I'm trying to introduce. I'm not going to send a letter to my colleague, am I? I'm going to talk to them face to face or on Teams or in some slightly more modern communication style. And that's why these tools exist, like Teams and Slack and Google Hangouts and all those other messaging apps and messaging chats. So at DSC, we were a big proponent of that, and we use Teams a lot. So my colleagues should only email me if I need to store that email for later. So maybe it's prices for courses, or I have an outstanding action. Yeah. Externally, it's exactly the same. I email all my clients because they're not in the building with me or they're not in my team's kind of ecosystem, are they? So actually, what we're trying to do here is pivot some of our internal conversations to a more modern format, like a Teams chat, and then keep email for external comms or for things where we need references and actions. So one of my colleagues emails me and says, George, please can you send me those updated minutes from the meeting last week? They're probably going to send that to me as an email just so I can get that to that in my own time. And as I say, then that's our calendar being almost another to-do list. Nice. Okay, so we're going to talk to our colleagues. If you need me urgently, call me. If there's a system outage, I think that's reason to pick up the phone and tell me. And what we're trying to do is make the inbox something where urgent communication doesn't take place. Now, that's not always possible. That is completely dependent on your organization. And if you have to have urgent emails coming through, just remember that that's going to make it harder for you to turn off notifications. And that is going to be a risk to your productivity because there will be increased distraction throughout the day. If you think I need to keep a reference of that, you've got to email me. Okay. So I'm in a Teams chat now talking to my colleagues. We love moving gifts at DSC. And he says, look, we've got to do this. We've got to go and you've got to send me your biography and your photos. And so what I do is I mouse over it in Teams. I click the ... and I email myself. And I email myself the job. And suddenly I've just sent that Teams message nice and easy into my inbox so I can deal with that myself, from myself to myself. And so potentially, if you are using Teams, you have the really creative conversation in Teams, and then you send it to yourself. Any actions? Super useful. Okay. Turn off your notifications, guys. Make that brave step, not just for Outlook. Does ASOS deserve to tell you that it has a 20% off winter sale? Maybe it does. I don't know. But we're trying to manage what comes into our life here. And these devices that sit next to us and flash all of the time, they can be very, very, very invading if we give them the permission. So I used to make the joke that I have 3 types of notifications: phone calls, messages, and my Uber Eats, because I don't want to miss my food delivery. But I've just moved to North Wales and I can't get Uber Eats anymore, guys. So I've got my phone calls and I've got my messages. And that includes Teams and iMessage and WhatsApp and all those other messaging tools. I don't have any notifications on for emails. I go to my emails, they don't come to me. And that's because I trust if there was an urgent thing internally that I needed to deal with, one of my colleagues is probably going to pick up the phone or message me on Teams about it. Yeah. So we've got to be brave enough to take this step, assuming you are receiving urgent communication through another method. Don't make your folder system so complicated it takes more than 1 minute to organize it. So you want to, again, make that system quite nice and easy. Unsubscribe from emails. Don't keep deleting that same newsletter every single day that you never read. Unsubscribe from it. Please try not to touch emails more than once or twice, unless you're a fan of the scan. Okay. Part 1, inbox, done. We're going to do questions at the end, but anybody want a question now before we jump into to-do lists? Anybody feeling like this truck? George, you've already strapped too many things to me. Chat, you're giving me confidence. We're doing good. Okay. I hope everybody listening at home in the future is doing good as well. We're going to jump straight into writing tasks, managing to-do lists, the endless to-do list it can sometimes feel like. So I mentioned Getting Things Done by David Allen earlier, and I've got one of his quotes here. I think I've got a couple actually. Your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. How many of you are holding your charity jobs in your heads right now? Maybe you want to have a sick day because you feel poorly. But if you don't go to work, that work isn't going to get done because it's in your head. Now, not only is that impacting your well-being, your mental health, it's also impacting the ability to perform succession. So maybe you're impacting someone on your team who could be stepping up and supporting you. Alexa said absolutely. And so I do have this whole kind of spiel I normally do around evolution and how we would have held things in our head, right? Of course we did. Our ancestors successfully survived for millions of years without to-do lists. And they would have held things in their heads like this clean water and where's safety and where do I get my porcini mushrooms from and other kind of forage goods and the best way to find animals. And so we will hold things in our heads as humans. But my argument is that we want to take our roles, our jobs, these amazingly complex things that we've taken on, and put that into to-do lists and projects and manage those in a way so that our brain is freed up to think of, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Where am I going to take the kids at the weekend? Where do I want to go on holiday? What kind of hobbies am I working on? And all of those other fun things. So we're going to focus today on getting our charity work out of our head into a system. Because look, we can do anything, but we can't do everything, guys. Now, the problem with this is that whenever we choose not to do everything, which unfortunately is every single day in this sector, we let people down. Now, I saw some of the charities that are here today, and some of you will have beneficiaries that it's an incredibly emotional cause, and it can be really difficult to make these decisions and choose to not be able to support some people. And I totally, totally get that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try and use our to-do list system as a way of making sure our priorities are spot on, because we have to be able to make this decision to focus on what is important. And the best way to do that, from my perspective, is to get things written down. So there's 7 ways to organize. We're not going to have time to look at all 7 today. So I mentioned waiting for earlier, didn't I, actually? You maybe saw my waiting for folder in my emails. You can have a waiting for to-do list, but most people are waiting for emails to be replied to. And so a waiting for email folder is quite good. We're going to focus on number 1 and number 4. I guess we already spoke about number 3 a little bit, what's in our calendar. That in its own right is a to-do list. So we're going to focus on number 1 and number 4. Number 2 and number 5 are to do with storing material. I guess we already addressed number 2 and number 5 a little bit, because we can store project stuff and reference stuff in folders in emails. But you can also store references in kind of handwritten notes. You can bookmark websites. You can upload information to SharePoint and save it in files. There's lots of different ways to reference material, which we're not going to talk about. And we're not going to talk about someday maybe either. But this is quite a fun one, someday maybe, where it's what are those goals you have for your life or for your charity that are not for now, but actually we need to write down and just make sure we have a little eye on them, even if it's just once a year that we do that. And me and my wife, we set nice 7-year, 5-year and 2-year goals. We do that every single January. We renew that and have a look. But we're going to focus on these actions lists and projects lists. These are our to-do lists. These are the lists we're going to make. So the language I just want to introduce, there's normally 3 layers that we have. You have your project at the top, which is made up of a set of milestones. Milestones are made up of a set of tasks. The biggest mistake I see is people write down milestones thinking they're tasks. So I'll use a real life example. Let's say my car breaks down and I go into my to-do list and I go sort car and I feel amazing. Oh, great. I've written that in, sort car. I go to work and then I come home from work and I look at my to-do list and it says sort car and I get stressed because sort car is a milestone. It's not a task. And whenever we are writing things like that, we have to make sure we always write at least the next action, whatever that may be. So what I could have done is I could have written sort car, and then underneath that, I could have written call a local garage, book car into garage, take car to garage, pick car up from garage. And so that afternoon, when I've made loads of decisions already, I'm feeling fatigued, I open up my to-do list, it says sort car, and underneath it says contact a local garage. And I go, easy peasy. I go to Google Maps, I search garage, and I call a local garage. So we're trying to help the future version of yourself. And that's why we spoke about earlier saving time. If the current version of you can start to practice this, the future version of you is going to save time and energy by responding to that in a slightly easier way than if we give them a little bit of a vaguer approach to the job. So look at this. This is some things that maybe you have to do, right? I've got to finish the agenda. I've got to get a filing system, a water cooler. These are all milestones, and we've got to be careful about writing milestones about tasks. So what I would have hoped to see is at least the next action for these. Poor Greg, hey? Talk to Greg about the filing system. What does Greg know about the filing system that we don't? Charity Digital have just prompted in the chat, don't forget to upload to the Q&A so we can go through questions. Let me keep an eye on the time. Okay, we're going to keep going. So in practice then, these are some of the screenshots from my life. This is one of the courses I run. If I read my feedback and someone was mentioning some things to change, I'm going to make a note of this. I'm not going to do the changes straight away. I'm going to make the changes probably the week before I run the course again. So when I see I've got the course in my calendar, I go to my to-do list, which is called course creation. It's all to do with my management of courses. And I can then put these actions into my calendar. Here's one for my personal life. Pensions. I won't dwell on this too much. If anybody wants to consolidate all my pensions from me, that would be really nice. I haven't done this yet. But I did get some really useful resources, one from the government and one from PensionBee, a company that does this for you. And because I have this stored in a list called home, things I do at home, then I'm going to be able to collect the best practice route to do my pension when I finally come round to do it. And because I have all of this information stored there, I don't beat myself up every time I think about the fact I haven't done my pension consolidation yet. It doesn't matter because it's written there to do it when I have time and availability to do it, and I'm prioritizing other things. So sometimes even the process of writing these things down can be quite therapeutic for us. And that's why that someday maybe list is quite nice. Abby's saying, what platform do I use? Now, I'm biased, Abby. I used to work for Apple. I'm using Apple Reminders. And you can see I've got a few other options here as well. If you're on an iPhone and a Mac, I really, really recommend Apple Reminders. There's a really interesting feature on it and lots of them can do this these days, but you can now share lists between people as well. So you can share lists between family members. Me and my wife share a food shopping list, for example, in Apple Reminders. But it's no different to what you'd expect in Trello. As a charity, you can share lists within teams, and you can have meetings and goals can go into that, as opposed to maybe into an email platform. So you can do this physically as well. Don't forget, you can do this with good old-fashioned pen and paper. And I think there's something quite tangible about doing that. But the only reason I would challenge that is because we can't just have one to-do list anymore. We've got to have multiple. And so we call these either our next actions list or our projects list. So let's say, for example, I've got to do this. I've got to email my family or order a replacement screwdriver. And the reason I've got these here is because they take longer than 2 minutes. If they took less than 2 minutes, I would just do it. Don't forget. So I'm going to put these into my to-do list or into my calendar. I can just put these straight into my calendar if I want to. But these are the kind of specific lists that I have, because I will do something different when I'm on my train commute, as opposed to when I'm on site, as opposed to when I'm at my DSC desk. So for example, maybe someone says to me, oh, you need to read NCVO's new report. And I'm like, yes, I definitely do. But that's not the most important thing for me to be doing at my desk, or maybe I'm out on site. It's probably something I should do on my train commute when I'm sat there. So it goes into my train commute to-do list. You can see I've also got some other ones. These are home related, aren't they? Your food shopping is just another to-do list. You wouldn't put your food shopping in with your work to-do list. We understand the need to segregate that and put this food shopping list in a place where we'll address it when we get to the shop, right? And it's no different for work. We should have different lists. I say should. We could have different lists based on the different areas where we work. on site, at home, in your work office, when you're commuting. All of those different things are good examples. Yeah, I've got a packing list as well. Again, these are more personal, these bottom three. And we combine our next actions lists with projects lists. These two are my two projects lists. I sell training and I write training courses. And so when I looked at that example of amending the support and supervision slides, all of that information is found within course creation. I had to write this course for this focus formula webinar. That action went into my course creation to-do list. And then I was able to address that, obviously, in the time to be able to deliver this course. And so what we're going to have a think about is this idea of combining next actions lists and projects lists and using them as independent to-do lists. So maybe you work in a few different locations. Arguably, they could all be an independent next actions list. And maybe you're also involved in a few different projects, fundraising, management, maybe you're doing finance, maybe you're doing an appeal. Then I would consider having separate project lists for each of those major projects. Wayne's saying any AI you'd recommend. What you mean, like a generative AI tool like ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini? To help be more organized. I don't use the AI tools actually to help me be organized, but there would be AI features within things like Apple Reminders and Microsoft To Do. In fact, I'll put that in the chat as well. But for those of you listening from home, Microsoft To Do built into Outlook. If you look down the side panel in Outlook, you can see there's a tick. That is a really strong to-do list application where you can have multiple in trays or multiple to-do lists. And you can also set things to have milestones and steps to them. And that's the key word there. You'd have a milestone and then write steps underneath that. You can also combine that with the Microsoft To Do phone application on Android and iPhone. It's pretty good. So if you're looking at which one to use and you're purely focused on work-related jobs, Microsoft To Do could be a great fit for you. So let's have a think. What are the projects that we are working on that deserve their own to-do list? And what are those areas of work, for example, office, home, commute, where we could have different types of action? We're going to go to questions in 3 or 4 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I've got a few more slides to go through, but we'll give this one more minute. You do this and you're happy to share, pop it in the chat and I'll shout out the different types of to-do lists that you've just created or are planning to create. Okay, we're going to carry on. I know it's very cruel, isn't it? Of course, you can always come back to this exercise in your own time. So this only works if we review the lists regularly. Now, it makes sense that I would go to my list of things to do with stuff I'm doing at my desk or on my commute. But for example, my projects list, the way I do it for my course creation tasks, I set a date reminder. So for example, my task to create this course, I set a date reminder for like 3 weeks ago. That tells me 3 weeks ahead that I've got to put the time in my calendar to make this. And it's the same for my sales list as well. So as long as we review those lists regularly, that can be a great way to manage this. For sales, I do it slightly differently. And so for sales, I don't mark out every single task within my sales to-do list that I've got to do. I just block out 2 hours that say sales. And then I open up my sales to-do list when that time comes around and I start working through my to-do list. So there's a couple of different ways to do it there, guys. And I think both of them work. You can move specific items from your to-do list to your calendar, or you can block out blocks of time with the name of that to-do list. And I think both of those work. Nick's saying I use projects in Microsoft. Yeah, Microsoft Projects is epic. So just a little bit about language. Do try and use future focus language. Make sure you use a clear verb because You want to just help future you. Future you doesn't want to come to this and be like, what does it mean, funding? So just a little bit of a prompt here. Make sure we're just mindful of the language we're using. Charlene's saying, can you have the to-do list open without having Outlook open? Is it a separate app? Yes, the same way you can open the calendar in outlook.office.com, you can open the to-do list as well. And so what I would do, Charlene, is I would pin the calendar and I would pin my to-do list to my web browser and then close Outlook. Nice. So every open loop, every action must be in the captured system. We want to have as few buckets as possible. So you might reflect on this and think, well, actually, I don't need that to-do list for my commute anymore because I'm doing all of that stuff in a slightly different way. So you will reflect on this and make changes. And the idea here, if you're not checking them, maybe that's an argument that you need to remove that bucket. So just like we did in the inbox, there were 2 tasks and we skipped one of them. This is the one we're going to skip. But I would want you to, in your own time, come back to this, pick one of your next actions lists, and then start writing down open loops or tasks in there. Okay, great. Everything should be as simple as possible, but no simpler. Thank you, Einstein. That's really helpful. It's not, is it? But it's a great concept that this system can seem complicated to you at first. And if that feeling remains, maybe you need to simplify it slightly. But ultimately, a complex system can be exactly what you need sometimes to deal with this. And it just takes a little bit of getting used to and reflecting on. I started doing this in 2019, and I've changed my system probably every single year slightly. And I normally do it around Christmas time. Okay, so a task comes in. Is it actionable? No. Well, I'm just going to trash it. Maybe I store it for reference. If it is, does it take under 2 minutes? Do it. If not, I can delegate, defer, or plan it in, right? Put it in as a calendar event, leave it on one of my to-do lists, whatever it might be. So our calendar, planning specific actions, marking out key future events. If I go into my to-do list and I pick something that I want to do next week from that to-do list and put it in my calendar, tick it off your to-do list. So actually we can use our calendar to free up breathing space in our next actions and projects lists. I don't need it on both because my calendar is just another to-do list. Okay. Archive things. If there's nothing to action or reference, get rid of it. Archive it. You don't need to be sitting on it. Clean out your digital office. I just mentioned this. I do this the last week before Christmas every year. Make your office a nice, tidy office, both digitally and physically. Tidy desk, tidy mind is no different. Tidy to-do list, tidy mind. So this Christmas, maybe you'll implement this system and you've got now a few months to think about it. Ask yourself the question, are my email folders the same as they need to be back in September? Are my to-do lists the same as they needed to be back in September? And start refining that personal message for you. So a couple of books that I love, that I hugely recommend. If you've got the kind of bug of productivity, these 2 books were pretty game-changing for me. Deep Work by Cal Newport, and of course the book I've been mentioning all session, Getting Things Done by David Allen. I don't know why he put a selfie of himself on the cover, but he did. Maybe I should have put a selfie of myself on my books and they might have sold as many copies as he did. So I can see Toyosi's coming back now. We've got 7 minutes to go.
7 minutes indeed, yes.
Am I allowed to ask one more thing, Toyosi?
Absolutely, go for it.
So guys, this is what we've been here to learn, why we're archiving, how to make the right lists, how to focus on what is important. And if you want a little bit of accountability, you're welcome to give me your information right now in the lens of a target. Now, this is quite a fancy target. You can tell me you're going to start doing something, stop doing something, continue doing something, or you can just say, George, I'm going to make some to-do lists. And if you put that in the chat with your email, I will put you on my list of people to hold accountable. I'll reach out to you on Monday, and I'll reach out to you in 3 months' time, and we'll have a little chat. If you want to message me privately and say, George, can you go over this again? I will jump on a Zoom with you for free and do all of this. I love this stuff. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Toyosi, over to you.
Wow. Thank you so much, George. There's such a lot of really helpful takeaways there. Now, I know you've been answering some questions throughout the session, but we do have one question in the Q&A section. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to do that now whilst we have a couple of minutes left. Jan in the Q&A box has asked, will Outlook 2016 allow me to add numbers, view in columns, etc.?
I don't know what Outlook 2016 does. Have you got an option, Jan, in the top right corner to click try the new Outlook? And when we do the full day course, I do ask the delegates to consider this. So if you haven't ticked that try the new Outlook option in the top right corner, it might be worth considering. Now, don't be scared. You can always untick it. So you can always come back to the old Outlook. Okay. So, Jan, do you know if you're on Microsoft 365? For benefit of listeners, Jan saying I don't see that option in the chat. Because maybe you need to download a new version of Outlook from the Microsoft website.
Yeah.
Sarah's saying, I have an issue with the new Outlook as it does not work with our CRM to track emails. No, what CRM are you using, Sarah? I'm so surprised to hear that, because most of like Salesforce and HubSpot needed us to be. The new Outlook doesn't work with Dynamics.
It should do. You can track emails, I think. Yeah.
Claire's got to leave. Thank you, Claire. Yeah, Sarah, I'd be interested to learn more about that one. You can't get it to work. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That you'd think that would work. You'd think that'd be the first one that would have worked with the new Outlook. Obviously.
We have one more question, George. Sorry, just
Yeah, no, I can see it as well. Yeah, go on.
This is from Jay Ward. How do you create different to-do lists in MS To Do? So Microsoft To Do, which you referred to earlier. Is it just a case of duplicating and renaming the existing task lists?
Yeah, so in the left sidebar, I think the word they use is projects. You can create new projects. And so what I'd be expecting in that left sidebar is that you're able to then have those kind of different projects in there, whether it's your home desk, your work desk, your course creation, your fundraising, whatever it might be.
Brilliant. That's all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much, George. We've run out of time and it's been a brilliant session. Thank you to everyone who attended. Definitely a lot of tips that I'll be taking forward for myself, particularly around the sort of inbox organization. On a slightly related note, talking of emails, we are running a training session, our Charity Digital Academy, on how to master email marketing, which is happening on the 30th of September. So we'll pop a link in the chat. If you can attend, please do that, because that will be a really great session as well. And finally, if you could share your feedback with us, that would be so fantastic. It's really important to us, and you'll also be entered into a prize draw. So please do take a second to share your thoughts with us. We are posting also a link in the chat for that as well. Thank you so much, everyone. And George, any final thoughts before we wrap up now?
I've just asked for a few emails in the chat just for the people that left targets. So if you left a target and no email, just make sure you give me your email. Otherwise, I'll be chasing Toyosi.
Yes. And as we mentioned in the beginning, we will be sharing the recording with you in a week's time. Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.